Dear learners and listeners, welcome to this session. Today's topic is gender auditing and gender budgeting. This topic is part of the certificate program for gender and science and master's program in gender and development studies. And even if you have enrolled in master's program in women's and gender studies also, those learners can listen and they could able to know what is gender budgeting, why the budget and gender are budget and gender have been linked. That will certainly, this session will clearly give clarity for gender budgeting. You all must be wondering, why do we need to read about gender budgeting? First of all, we need to understand the strategies for gender budgeting. Gender budgeting doesn't mean that preparing a separate budget for male and female. It is not like that. When you have in a previous units and previous sessions, you would have listened that the society provides certain values and certain certain kind of works to be carried out by the male and female. Due to the certain values, because of the existing gender socialization and the patriarchal values in the society, the existing resources are also divided based on the existing values in the society. So most of the time, the female were not able to access and control over the resources. There is the limitation in accessing the resources for the female. So once then there is a different responsibilities due to the existing different values for the male and female. We have a different responsibilities. Male have a different responsibilities and female have a different responsibilities due to the existing values and the gender socialization process as well as the patriarchal attitudes existing in the society. Once you would have already read about the gender socialization, patriarchy and the existing societal values and roles for the male and roles for the female in the. So when we have a different roles for the male and different roles for the female, we have our needs also different. Male have a different needs and female have a different needs. According to their needs, we need to allocate the budgetary resources to address the needs. Main responsibility of the government is to address the needs of the different sections of the society. So these basic understandings we have clearly talked about the course 1 itself. Whether you are the gender and science student or masters in gender and development studies, this has been clearly explained in the first course itself. Now, since male and female, they have a different needs, there should be the different budget allocations. Here comes the gender budgeting. So first, in this session, we would learn about what is budget and what is gender budgeting, and we also could able to understand the linkage between gender and budgeting, and I will explain the need for gender budgeting as well as we will examine the benefits of gender budgeting. These are the major objectives as far as this session is concerned. So first we need to understand that what is budget. Budget is a government financial plan for a definite period. Okay, so according to Rainestorm, I quote, "A budget is a document containing the preliminary approved plan of public revenues and expenditure." From this definition, we could able to clearly understand that it is a document containing the preliminary approved plan of what is the revenue of the revenue for the government, how much the expenditure the government is planning to do that. This is the basic understanding about the budget. So, when we talk about the definition for the budget, certainly we need to understand the need for budget. Why do we prepare a budget? Okay, government could able to generate the revenue through various means. Like, for example, there is a personal taxes, there is a professional taxes, and also government could develop the revenue through their own government by generating the revenues through the government aided institutions. Some governments, they have also run the public sector units. Whenever any public sector unit, if it's successfully run, the government could generate the revenues. So certainly the government could able to generate the revenues. When we talk about the government could able to generate the revenues, certainly it needs to plan how it could able to spend those revenues. That is the first thing. Second thing is that in every year, the government could able to generate the certain percentage of the revenues. Within that revenues, how much it could able to spend for various sectors, whether it's in health, education, or improving the infrastructural facilities, transportation. So there are various, like a sports, there are various sector is there. So the government needs to decide how much it could able to spend for various sectors. So the government has several policies to implement to perform its functions to meet social and economic growth objectives. That is the main reason that the government has to prepare a budget. Second one is that it needs to implement various policies, like to spend on whether it comes to defense or administration or welfare policies, various growth and development the government has to develop. So it is necessary to find out the possible sources of funds, as well as government could able to generate funds from various sources. So how those funds could be able to spend on growth and development. This is the main reason that they have to prepare a budget. Why do they need to prepare a budget for every year? Means every year the government could able to calculate its own revenues. Based on its revenues, it could able to address various development issues, as well as it could able to spend for the country's growth. That is the main reason that it has to prepare a budget. Then the government should understand that the planning process of assessing revenue and expenditure is termed as budget. That is the term budget is derived from the French word which means leather bag or wallet. You must have seen many of the finance ministers from various countries, like they prepare a budget, and the elected representatives who assume as the minister, they present the budget in the elected bodies, like whether it's upper house, usually lower house is elected directly by the people. So when they present the budget, entire parliament they could able to convene, and the elected member or the minister of the particular department, finance department, you could have seen in the media that they carry the budget document and they could able to present in the parliament. Once after parliament passes it, it became the particular year's revenue and expenditure plan. Basically, it is the statement of the financial plan of the government. You could able to see in the budget that it could able to clearly talk about the income and expenditure of the government during this specific financial year. As far as India is concerned, the financial year runs between 1st April to 31st March. So it's like budget is the, as far as any country is concerned, the budget is the essential information document of the government. Budget is also provides the information of the government policies and programs. What is the government policy and how programs, how much the government could able to spend on particular policies and programs, that will be clearly stated in the budget. Budget may also have, if you look at any budgetary document, it may have two parts. The first part presents the overall picture of the government's financial performance. The second part of the budget presents the government financial plans for the period up to its next budget. These are the two parts of the any budget. Every citizen of the nation, from an ordinary person to the representatives, everybody eager to know about the budget, as they would like to get an idea of the following. First one is that everybody will come to know about the financial performance of the particular government, and also through the budget, everyone in that particular country, they come to know the past performance of the any government. Second one is that every citizen, every individual in that particular country, they know about the financial programs and policies of the government of the following year. And next important issue, all of us must understand that how their standard of living will be affected by the government's financial policies in the next year. These are the things. So here we have clearly understood what is budget. Next important issues here, we need to understand that how the budget is linked with the gender. That is the important lecture in this session. Okay, so gender budget, all of us, you must understand that gender budget is not the separate budget. So the government, they won't prepare a separate budget for male and female. It is an approach, it's a government approach that can highlight the gap between the policy statements and the resources committed to their implementation and ensuring that public money is spent in more gender equitable ways. Here I would like to explain little more about what is gender budgeting. As I have mentioned that due to the existing socialization process, it is difficult for women to access the resources in the sense whether it's an educational institutions or whether with regard to health facilities, whether it's a common property resources or controlling the properties, land and other resources, or like public sector institutions, it is difficult for female to access that. So when they compare with the male members in the society, the female, they have lagging behind in many respects. For example, if you take education as one indicator, we could able to basic assessing the basic with regard to educational indicators, literacy is the basic indicator to measure how far the male and female they could able to access the educational institutions. So when it comes to female literacy, the female, they are lagging far behind the male members in the society. Like that, when it comes to higher educations, always the percentage of the female accessing higher education, specifically education related to science and engineering, they are lagging far behind the male members in the society. So here, it is the responsibility of the government to address the existing differences between male and female as far as education is concerned. How could they do? Then government could able to allocate necessary resources. Here resources means basically budgetary allocations. They could spend enough budgetary allocations to address the female or improving the female percentages in educational institutions. So here the issue is not whether we are spending on same on men and women, but whether spending is adequate for women's and men's needs. That's why in the beginning of the lecture itself, I clearly pointed out that there is a differences between male and female due to the existing differences in the society. So because of the existing differences in the society, allocation of the resources for men and women also different. So gender budgeting are the tool for implementing the government's gender mainstreaming commitments. Here as a learner, you all must be wondering what is mainstreaming. That the definition of mainstreaming already mentioned in the course 1 itself. Mainstreaming is nothing but bringing gender concerns at the every level and every institutions and improving the women's percentage in all the institutions. So how do they mainstream gender issues at every level in the every institutions? Through necessary budgetary allocations, government could able to improve women's presence at all levels, as well as the government could able to allocate necessary budgetary resources in every sectors. Then they could able to address women's issues. So it will link policy commitments across government departments with their budgetary allocations. So next important, now we could able to understood that the importance of gender budgeting, and gender budgeting is not about preparing the separate budget. It is the addressing the gender concerns in the existing budget. How do we address the existing gender concerns? First, we need to collect necessary data from the field. Then we could able to understand that the status of women and men in women's position and male's position in the various fields. According to their status and positions, the government could able to allocate necessary resources and they could able to address the concerns of the female members in the budget. As next, we could able to learn the definition of gender budgeting. As Sharp and Broomhill explained that, I quote, "They are a mechanism for establishing whether the government's gender equality commitments translate into budgetary commitments," I unquote. With the suitable economic underpinning, the government's equality commitments are unlikely to be realized. So gender budgeting initiatives go beyond assessing programs explicitly targeted at women and girls and seek to expose assumptions of gender neutrality within all economic policy and raising awareness and understanding that budgets will impact differently on men and women because of their different social and economic positioning. Here you could able to clearly understood the need for gender budgeting. In initial stage, the gender budgeting was termed as women's budget because the focus was on the impact on women and girls. More recently, the emphasis has shifted to gender because the term gender itself very inclusive term, where it includes both men, women and other genders also. So now we no longer talk about it's a women's budget. Now we need to mention it's mentioned as gender budget. So the emphasis has shifted to gender as a category for analysis and to avoid any misunderstanding that activists are working to produce separate budget for women. That is and also if you look at the gender budgeting, it involves analyzing budgetary policies that assess the real impact of income and expenditure on women and men and ensure that implemented programs do not accentuate social and economic inequalities between the sexes. So gender-based assessment budgets incorporate gender perspective at all levels of the budgetary process and restructuring the revenues and expenditure to promote gender equality. Here we need to understand that I have mentioned it's all levels. All level in the sense the government, whether the government is preparing the budget at the national level or state level, or even in India some of the local body institutions, some of the municipalities, some of the even the Gram Panchayat level, they have prepared the gender budget and they have collected gender disaggregated data. Based on their data, they could able to assess the levels of male and female according to their positions, according to their status. Even certain local body institutions, municipalities and Gram Panchayats, they could able to allocate enough revenues to address the concerns of the male, female and other genders. Thus, the process of gender budgeting equally results in gender responsive budgeting. When we talk about gender budgeting, the entire process, it is called as gender responsive budgeting. Means gender responsive budgeting or gender sensitive budget, gender budget, these are the different terms, like interchangeably we could able to use it. But when we talk about gender responsive budgeting, then it clearly talks about the existing process of gender budgeting. The process of entire gender budgeting itself exercise. In that exercise, they could able to address the concerns of the both male, female and other genders. So once the government decided to prepare the gender responsive budget, and they could able to conceive, they get able to plan, approve, execute, monitor, analyze and audit the budgets in a gender sensitive manner. So the entire process, not only preparations, they could able to plan, they could able to implement. Once they implement, during the process of implementing, they could able to monitor and they could able to analyze and audit the entire budgeting process in a very gender sensitive manner. It also involves analysis of actual expenditure and revenues on men and women as compared to men, like they could able to assess how much they have allocated for the women, how much they allocated for the men, and how much they allocated for girls and how much allocated for the boys. So it helps the government to decide how policies needs to be made, adjusted and reprioritized. It is a tool. The gender budgeting is a tool as part of the gender and development approach for effective policy implementation, where one can check if the allocations are in line with policy commitments and have, once they allocated, whether it had a desired impact or not. So thus the gender budgeting describes the government's expenditure on various programs and policies that address gender concerns in society. There are two important definitions as far as gender budgeting is concerned. As I have already mentioned, we call it as gender sensitive budget or gender budget or women budget, and it analyzes the various tools and process to facilitate the government to prepare the gender budgeting by incorporating the concerns of the both male and female. These budget exercises have recently begun using gender as a category of analysis, so they could able to prepare a gender sensitive budget. It's like incorporating the concerns of the both the genders and other gender also. In this entire process, they start with collecting the disaggregated data, and whenever they allocate certain amount, or whenever they could able to able to develop certain policies and programs, in the process of preparing the gender budgeting, they could able to decide, once it implements in the field, what impact that particular budgetary allocations could create on women, men and different groups in the society. with the cognizance of being given to the society's underpinning of gender relations. You know, gender relation is there is a relationship between male and female. Due to the existing gender relations, the female are not treated on par with male members in the society. There is a existing gender differences. Due to the existing gender differences, and the female are lagging behind in many sectors and many areas, and they could also face various kinds of violences in the society. Due to the existing gender relations, the female that existing gender relations need to be altered to bring equity and equality in the society. Thus, gender budgeting, it's an initiative. How the government spend the public money to secure gender equality secure gender equality by allocating enough resources, and also even when they allocate certain resources, what kind of impact it could able to create on male and female. There are various steps in preparing the gender budgeting. First one is the analysis of the situation for men and women and girls and boys in a given sector. As I have given you one example with regard to education sector, like whether it's a health sector, you could able to see that the existing health like status of health in the particular country was assessed through various indicators. As far as female is concerned, like maternal mortality rate, child mortality rate, infant mortality rate, and resources, the existing resources, and as well as the availability of the resources, whether the female could able to access the resources. For example, when we talk about resources is not only about infrastructural facilities. Like we could able to see that like population doctors ratio and female population and female doctors ratio. These are the certain indicators. Through these indicators, we could assess the status of health in a particular state or country. So, like how we need to say, second step is to assess the extent to which the sector's policy address the gender concern. Then if there is inadequacy in the budgetary allocations, how we could able to implement. Once they implement, how we are going to monitor it, and when they implement, what type of impact that particular policy create on different genders indifferently, whether the policies could able to improve the male, female, other genders in the society. First of all, where is the need means basically to improve the human development, as well as to improve the status of male and female and other genders, and to alter the existing gender relations to bring equity and equality in the society. I hope today's sessions we could able to learn what is budget, what is the gender budgeting, the relationship between gender and budgeting, and the significance of implementing the gender budgeting. If we start implementing the gender budgeting, what kind of positive impacts we could able to create in the society, how we could able to improve the status of both male and female in the society. These are the various significant issues we have learned in this session. In the next session, we could able to learn elaborately how the government is preparing the budget and how much it was allocating in various sectors, what type of impact it has created, how it has improved the male and female through case studies and certain data we could able to learn. Thank you so much for listening this session. Thank you.
A warm welcome to IGNOU. If you are creative, if you can write well, and if you can visualize, mass communication is the correct career option for you. I am going to talk about postgraduate diploma in journalism and mass communication, which is also the first year of MA program in journalism and mass communication. So any learner who has done a postgraduate diploma in journalism and mass communication is eligible to take admission straight away into the second year of our master's program in journalism and mass communication. Duration to complete this program is minimum 1 year, and because we have this inherent flexibility in distance education system, you can take up to 3 years to complete this program. The minimum eligibility criteria for taking admission in this program is bachelor's in any discipline. To give you a glimpse of what are the various components of this program, we begin with telling you what mass communication is, what are the various areas, various branches of mass communication. Then we go on to tell you about the various reporting techniques and beats of reporting, followed by media ethics, the principles, the codes of conduct that you must follow, and we also focus on the writing skills and editing skills for print media. Now this program comprises of 8 courses of 4 credits each. 25% of the entire program is practical based. So we have 6 theory courses and 2 practical courses. This program is so designed so that it will be able to make you more employable in the market. So it helps you build a career in print media, in radio, television, new media, as well as the allied subjects of mass communication, which could be media marketing, advertising, public relations and corporate communications, event management. This can also help you become an entrepreneur in areas like photography or having your own production house and so on. So I hope that you will be excited to join this program, and we will be waiting to welcome you here in IGNOU.
Ninth December 1946, a pivotal day in the history of modern India. यह एक ऐसा ऐतिहासिक दिन था जब संपूर्ण देश से संविधान सभा के प्रतिनिधि एकजुट होकर पहली बार देश की प्रारूप रेखा, देश का आईन, देश का संविधान, हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन रचने जा रहे थे. In this discussion of Gyan Darshan today, we will be talking about this very journey of making of the Indian Constitution. In today's session, we have with us Professor D. Ananda from Faculty of Political Science, School of Social Sciences, and myself is Anjali, a research scholar in the same discipline. The theme of today's discussion is Social, Economic and Philosophical Foundations of the Indian Constitution, या हमारे संविधान निर्माण की सामाजिक, आर्थिक और दार्शनिक परिप्रेक्ष्य क्या रहा, उस पर हम आज चर्चा करेंगे. So, ये कोर्स particularly bachelor's और master's in political science scholars के लिए designed है. And as we begin, at the very onset, I would like to discuss with you, sir, that what was the historical context, what was the churning in the nation in which the Indian constitution making started to happen?
To understand this context, actually, we have to understand the national movement and the context of the national movement at that time, actually. Actually, when we look at the constitution making, the Constituent Assembly met in a very, very in a historical juncture, at the same time very a problematic, at the same time a kind of a crucial time of the nation actually. So in that circumstances, they started actually looking at the things, especially a constitution is a politico-legal document according to which the country will be functioning. So they wanted to decide what kind of constitution is required for the future of this India, what is the best suited kind of available alternatives are there. They were doing a lot of research at that time. So in this historical conditions actually, in 1947 we have got the freedom, especially the political power has been transferred from the Britishers to Indian rulers. From 1946 onwards, we have started actually making the constitution actually. Writing of the constitution, the Constituent Assembly first actually met in 1946 itself actually. So at that time, they were looking at the historical conditions. At the same time, there were so many social and economic problems faced by the nation at that time. When we look at actually, in 1947, we got the freedom. So by getting the freedom from the Britishers, we have actually achieved a kind of a revolution actually, that is a political revolution. So the way during the national movement itself, the nationalist leaders actually, national leaders very strongly actually determined to make India into a self-determinant, at the same time a egalitarian and democratic society. So under these circumstances, getting a freedom and the political transfer of the political power to the Indian leaders is actually a one step. That is we call it actually, it is a political revolution. So this political revolution is nothing but transfer of the power, but it is not going to make a very big change in terms of the restructuring the society and rebuilding the society the way they wanted to actually. So in front of them actually, there is a kind of another major task was there in front of the Constituent Assembly members. That task was actually the social revolution. Granville Austin actually says it actually there is a requirement of the social revolution, and the Constituent Assembly members were actually grappling to this political revolution at one side. After achieving the political revolution, their task was actually to rebuild the society and reform the society into a most egalitarian and democratic manner. So that is that implies the social revolution actually. So for this purpose, they have to lead actually the country in the future in a proper manner. For that purpose, they have met in that historical conditions, and taking it to all the historical juncture actually, they wanted, the main intention of the Constituent Assembly members was transform the society into a most egalitarian manner and the most democratic manner, and reform the society and eradicate all the inequalities and all. This is the main aim of the Constituent Assembly members at that time.
जी सर, तो हमने जाना कि जिस समय हमारे देश का संविधान का दस्तावेज रचा जा रहा था, उस समय दो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण रेवोल्यूशन थे, एक पॉलिटिकल रेवोल्यूशन और एक था सोशल रेवोल्यूशन. और इन दो मेजर चैलेंजेस, इन दो मेजर टास्क को ध्यान में रखते हुए संविधान का निर्माण किया जा रहा था. आगे बढ़ते हैं सर. सो व्हेन आवर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन वाज बीइंग फ्रेम्ड, certainly in the entire world we had certain samples of constitution already in place. So what were the different models that were in front of us, in front of our constitution makers, that could be replicated or borrowed for our context, for the Indian context, sir?
So this is also a very complicated task before the Constituent Assembly members at that time. So there were so many models at that time and so many ways to deal these conditions. So in this historical conditions actually, they were looking at different alternative models which are available in front of them in the entire world. Because Indian constitution is not merely a mechanical arrangement for the institutions, power and the governance. It is the constitution is a very a social document, the first and foremost social document as described by the Granville Austin, and it sets a vision, direction and goal to the future as future policy makers. At the same time, they wanted to establish a kind of a wonderful society in future. So because of that, actually they were looking at the various alternative models which were actually available in front of them. So those models are nothing but basically in any constitution is nothing but a culmination of the historical conditions, at the same time social and economic aspirations of the people actually. So accordingly, at that time, the Indian Constituent Assembly members who are the makers of the Constitution, they were looking at different alternatives. Basically, we can look at, there were three alternatives in front of them. Those three alternatives are that, one is that a Soviet socialist model, and another one is that actually the European and American model, one of the other model was there. Apart from that, the traditional Indian indigenous model based on the Gandhian philosophy, there was another model was there. So these three are the basic, broadly we can divide the alternative models before the Constituent Assembly are the Soviet socialist model, then the European and American model. At the same time, we have our own Gandhian based, actually Gandhian principled based, actually that Indian indigenous model. So when they were looking at different things, because Indian indigenous model was the first and foremost option in front of them, because Gandhi led the national movement, and majority of the national movement, national leaders at the same time, Constituent Assembly members are very much influenced by the national movement. So in these circumstances, in not only the national movement, Gandhian principles. In these circumstances, actually, they were looking at, Gandhi is always a champion of the village Swaraj, at the same time village self-republics. So he wanted to transform the Indian into a self-republic. Each village will be a self-republic, and it will be having its own powers and functions. So all these powers and functions will be exercised by the village panchayat itself, and the village, each individual has taken as a unit actually. And each village is one of the prime basic political institution in the Gandhian principles, principle of this village self-republics. So under this, what happens, each village will be regulating its own affairs without having any kind of restrictions. Almost all the powers are vested with the village panchayat. Then the provincial and the national panchayats are merely a kind of advisory things. The national panchayat will be dealing with the major and the key and functions like the civil aviation, defense, and currency, which cannot be dealt by the each village actually. So such model was actually one of the basic one. And Sriman Narayan Agrawal, as one of the prominent Gandhian in the Constituent Assembly, he has actually prepared a blueprint of the Gandhian model of the Constitution and submitted to the consideration of the Constituent Assembly. And Arun Chandra Guha has very strongly argued for the Gandhian model of principled Gandhian constitution actually based on the village self-republics. But ultimately, when the debate discussion was going on, there was a very little response to this Gandhian model of constitution. Why? Because there was a lot of criticism on this village republics also. How we can make these village republics, villages, those days in 1947, these villages as self-republics. There was a lot of doubt in the minds of the Constituent Assembly members. They could not even convince that these villages can be made as a self-republics, which will be regulating their own affairs. That was one of the things. At the same time, one more, the major opposition came from the Ambedkar. Ambedkar did not believe that these villages can function as a self-republics and regulate their own affairs, because he describes this village as a den of ignorance, sink of localism, narrow-mindedness, casteism, communalism. These villages are actually grappling with all these kind of problems. How these villages can become the self-republics, that was one of the major doubt. So they did not actually believe this kind of things. But they did not believe this kind of village self-republics, but they have given a consideration by opting this village self-republics and panchayat raj system actually in the directive principles of state policy under the Article 40 of the Indian Constitution. They kept aside this Gandhian model. Apart from that, actually, they were looking at the other model, is that Soviet socialist model. This Soviet socialist model is based on a monolithic party system, and a Leviathan kind of state will be developed, and state will be controlling each and every sphere of the human life, and it can be a kind of a Leviathan kind of structure, and it can enter into the each and every sphere of the human life. So in these circumstances, actually the Constituent Assembly members at that time, they were very much influenced by the Russian Revolution and its advancement of the society and its development in socio-economic conditions of the society at that time in the Russia. So these are all actually were very much, there was a tremendous influence on this Constituent Assembly members. And majority of the leaders actually, like Nehru, even Patel, or majority of the members are very much influenced by the Russian socialist goals and the Russian socialist revolution. So under these circumstances also, they were looking at the as a Russian socialist model as a model actually to the India, but this has also got a very a little favorable response from the Constituent Assembly members, because this monolithic constitution and with a Leviathan kind of structure, actually the state structure, which will be actually denying the fundamental rights and freedom. That was the fear of the Constituent Assembly members at that time. So it will be not taking care of the individual as a unit, and individual respect and other things, individual freedoms were not taking into consideration by such kind of structure. So because of that, they abandoned the idea of even having this Russian socialist model also. So by rejecting these two models, the Russian Soviet socialist model, stating that it is going to be a problem for this kind of a society, a diverse society, it will be not into taking into consideration of the human liberties and freedoms. That was the reason mainly to reject the Soviet socialist model. Then at the same time, the Gandhian model also, they have kept it aside. Apart from that, actually they have the basic other alternative model, is that the Westminster model, otherwise we can call it as a, broadly we can call it as a European American model. So this European American model, actually it was getting a favorable response, because the India, when you look at the historical development of the constitution, constitutional phases at the same time from the 1940s, before that also, actually we can see that 1935 Government of India Act, 1919 Government of India Act, 1909 Government of India Act, these are all actually established a kind of a parliamentary form of government in the nation already. At the same time, majority of the Constituent Assembly members were educated in the London, and they were very much influenced by the left, Western liberalism actually. This Western liberalism influence on the Constituent Assembly members is very tremendous. At the same time, we have already trained in that model by the Britishers during the British rule. So accordingly, we have already established some of the institutions, though there may be a limited manner, actually, there limited manner in we have already trained and we have already established such institutions, maybe a parliamentary democracy, at the same time a broad federal structure. Apart from that, judiciary and other things, actually in the broad British model we have already established. So in that circumstances, actually adopting a Westminster model based on the British parliamentary model, actually it is a natural choice in front of the Constituent Assembly members. So they have adapted the parliamentary form of government and a parliamentary democracy to the future of India, and which will be taking into consideration that individual liberties, freedoms, at the same time welfare of the people, and everything will be taken care by this parliamentary democratic model. So under these circumstances, they have adapted this parliamentary democratic process, and West liberal democratic methods have very much influenced the people. So it is a kind of a natural choice. Though it is a natural choice, they did not take it as it is actually. They have made so many changes as per the Indian conditions. They have followed a midway, neither it is a Western democratic, exactly the model, at the same time Soviet socialist model or the Gandhian model. All the things have they mixed it, and the amalgamation of all these ideals, best ideals as amalgamated, and the Indian constitution with the parliamentary democratic model actually has become a culmination point in that historical juncture. These are the things they were looking at, the alternatives.
Absolutely, sir. So, majorly we drew from the European American model or Westminster or parliamentary form of model, but definitely we had three or multiple choices in front of us. We primarily depended on some, but we borrowed the important and the useful elements from the others also, as sir described. That the Gandhian principles or the Gandhian decentralized model was also adopted in the DPSP, or the socialist principles of the Russian or the Soviet model were also adopted in the DPSP. So likewise, we borrowed from different principles, majorly focusing on the parliamentary Westminster sort of principle, because that, as sir explained, it was a natural choice because of the familiarity with the system. Now, moving on, sir, can we briefly discuss about the philosophical foundation around that time in the minds of the constitution makers while drafting our constitution? What was the philosophy, and where exactly can we see that philosophy in our constitution, sir?
Basically, as I was discussing in the very beginning itself, Indian constitution is not merely a mechanical arrangement for the power structure, actually, the social institutions and all these things. So it's not only a arrangement for the power structures, political institutions and division of powers among the organs of the government and other institutions. These are all very much there in the Indian constitution, but at the same time it is a very, very foremost social document. At the same time, it has tried to set a vision, provide a goal to the future of the Indian nation, actually. So when we look at these philosophical foundations, we have so many great ideals and ideas. We can find it in the Indian constitution. Basically, to understand the Indian constitution, actually, we have to look at the preamble. Preamble is the basic thing which we can understand through reading the preamble. By understanding the preamble or objectives, actually the objectives and ideals, we can truly understand the basic philosophy of the Indian constitution. For that, actually, we have to very keenly look into the preamble of the Indian constitution and objectives resolution, at the same time the Constituent Assembly debates. So looking at the Constituent Assembly debates, especially the objective resolution, and based on that the preamble has been actually framed. So these three things will be making a key things to understand the basic philosophy of the Indian constitution. So the philosophy of the Indian constitution we will see in a different and varied clauses of the Indian constitution. We have a very broad and largest constitution in the world, and different clauses of the Indian constitution set vision and direction. So when we look at the preamble of the Indian constitution, actually we will see a wide variety of ideals, the basic ideals which the constitution actually stands. This preamble is nothing but a kind of a preface to the constitution, and which will be actually describing the entire ideas and ideals of the Indian constitution. So that's what actually it was Justice Sikri has once in the Kesavananda Bharati has said, that to understand the basic philosophy of the constitution we have to depend upon the preamble of the Indian constitution and the glorious objectives actually enshrined in the preamble of the Indian constitution. That was the basic things. So when we look at the Indian constitution, the preamble of the Indian constitution, we see in the very first part itself the nature of the power. We the people, that power is actually derived from the people itself. People are supreme and sovereign in that way. At the same time, last parts of the preamble also says that this hereby adapt, enact and give to ourselves this constitution. So that also says, this is one of the important thing which we have to understand, that the power is derived from the people. People are supreme, and the people will be prevailing in this democratic process. Then we look at the other parts of the preamble. Actually, we will see that nature of the state. Nature of the state is sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. The nature of the state is actually described in the Indian constitution. It is a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. So it is a sovereign nation, at the same time a democratic principles, wherever from top to the bottom, actually we have established democratic institutions. At the ground level we have the Panchayat Raj institutions from the village level, then the block level, taluk levels, taluk panchayats or mandal panchayats or block panchayats we can call it, then the Jilla panchayats will be there, then state level, at the same time union level. We have everywhere we have a democratic institutions. So the democracy and democratic institutions and democratic process, one of the basic principles and foundations of the Indian constitution. We can see that things. So that way everywhere with democratic institutions and democratic process has been established in the Indian constitution. So apart from that, we have a kind of, it is a republic. Why? Because though we have entered into a commonwealth actually, where the king or queen of the British actually heading this commonwealth group, but though we have established we are the member in the commonwealth group of commonwealth, but we have rejected the idea of giving the headship to the king or queen. We have been a republic. The republic means here we have to understand the head of the state has been elected by the people. So here the President of India is elected by the people. So it means a republic. The republic means the head of the state is elected by the people. Accordingly, we have our President of India will be elected by the people indirectly. So we became the republic. Despite of being the republic, we have, for some reasons, for practical reasons, for the help at the time, this as a nascent democracy, we require some kind of help from the British. So that's what we have entered into a parliament, even the Commonwealth also. Apart from that, we have the socialist principles. As we have kept it aside, the socialist and secular has been later we have added into the preamble. But these are, though it was not that initially in the preamble, the ideas and ideals were very much there in the form of the socialist principles in the directive principles of state policy and other parts of the Indian Constitution. So the nature of state has been described by the democratic, socialist, secular, and republic is one of the thing. And apart from that, we have the justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. So these are also different kinds of things. The principles, we look at the justice, the social, economic, and political. These are the threefold principles. The justice here, the economic justice, at the same time social justice, at the same time political justice. So this justice is one of the important, social justice is one of the important principle and important philosophy in the Indian Constitution. Like the fundamental rights in part 3 of the Indian Constitution deals with the many of the individual rights, like the justice in terms of the individual as a unit. We can see the other this economic and even the political justice also, we have given each individual a voting right. So accordingly, the political justice and individual liberties and everything is taken care by the fundamental rights under part 3 of the Indian Constitution. Then the justice, actually the social justice principles, we will see in the directive principles of the state policy under part 4 of the Indian Constitution. So part 4 of the Indian Constitution directly and clearly deals with the justice principles, social justice principles of the society. It varied classes, actually varied articles is meant to establish a egalitarian state, a democratic state, which means the equality will be really prevailing. For that purpose, Article 38, 39, and all other articles will be dealing for many things. So accordingly, we have so many social legislations like land ceiling, we have the things, reservations we have brought in. At the same time, monopoly restrictions we have brought in. Many social, very advanced social legislations we have started bringing up after a constitution came into existence, came into force in 1950 itself. So constitution is aimed at establishing the justice, liberty, and equality. So equality means actually equality in many ways actually. The equality at the same freedom of thought, expression also we have taken into care in the form of fundamental rights by giving Article 19. It will be ensuring this liberty of thought, freedom, and expression. Then right to life, Article 20 and 21 will be established. So this is the way actually different things, and fraternity also not it is limited to the fraternity of the Indian citizens. It will be the entire universal brotherhood actually here. That's what the Article 51 of the Indian Constitution deals with, that the actually with the universal brotherhood and at the same time settling the issues or disputes very peaceful manner. So these are the basic things I think we have running after time. So we can wind up with your conclusion.
Yes, sir. Yes, so definitely, sir. So preamble primarily reflects the philosophy, the philosophical foundation of the Constitution. Now, overall in this session, we discussed what were the major challenges or tasks at hand for our constitution makers when we were starting for the newly independent state, and that we tackled in terms of establishing a political revolution, and as Granville Austin says, the social revolution. Those were the major tasks at hand, and I think we have done a decent job in after so many years, when in the context of post-colonial nations, primarily when we are seeing coup, we are seeing military takeovers or constitutions being written multiple times, our constitution stands sturdy, and that is primarily because we keep our document fluid and open to interpretation as per the time. So on that note, we would like to conclude this session, and I hope it is helpful to our learners. Thank you, sir, for guiding this session with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
पहाड़ों पर जाना किसे पसंद नहीं। इस तरह के पहाड़ तो आपने देखे ही होंगे। चलिए आज आपको विशेष प्रकार के पहाड़ों की सैर कराते हैं। ये हैं कूड़े के पहाड़, जिनके बोझ तले दुनिया दबी जा रही है। इन कूड़े के पहाड़ों में हैं हमारे घरों, कार्यालयों, उद्योगों से निकलने वाली बेकार की वस्तुएं, जैसे इस्तेमाल किया हुआ कागज, फटे कपड़े, पुरानी लकड़ी, धातु, कांच के सामान, सब्जी फलों के छिलके, पुराने मोबाइल, लैपटॉप इत्यादि। कूड़े के ये पहाड़ न केवल शहरों में बल्कि गांव में भी पाए जाते हैं। अपशिष्ट की बढ़ती हुई मात्रा और इसकी विषैली प्रकृति हमारे पर्यावरण और स्वास्थ्य को नुकसान पहुंचाती है। कभी सोचा है इसका निपटान कैसे होता है, या क्या होता है इन कूड़े के पहाड़ों का? कैसे हम इस समस्या से छुटकारा पा सकते हैं? इन सभी प्रश्नों का उत्तर देने के लिए इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विश्वविद्यालय अपशिष्ट प्रबंधन में प्रमाण पत्र कार्यक्रम प्रस्तुत करता है। यदि आप नगर निगम में कार्यरत हैं, सैनिटरी
नमस्कार। आज हम लोग मिडिल ईस्ट की जो संकट है, अरब वर्ल्ड में इजराइल और हमास के युद्ध संघर्ष कह लें के बारे में चर्चा करेंगे। क्यों है, कैसे शुरू हुआ, क्या इसका हिस्टोरिकल बैकग्राउंड है, भारत का रुख क्या है, दुनिया इसे किस नज़र से देखती है, क्या ये कॉन्फ्लिक्ट विल लीड टू द फर्दर enlargement, expansion of the conflict, and many of the experts believe that it may convert into the limited world war. Is it true? And what are the reasons behind it? So these are the very important things for the last more than 25 days since this new crisis has started. Already the world is reeling under the heat of the Russia-Ukraine war, which we have been watching for more than 1.5 years. And this again, conflict between the two has sparked drastically and engulf major countries of the world, either from this side or other side. But whatever is happening, the humanitarian crisis is writ large, which we can see कि कितने बड़े पैमाने पर शरणार्थी बेघर हो गए हैं। वेस्ट बैंक, गाजा पट्टी और बाकी तमाम तरह के नाम आप अखबारों में, समाचार पत्रों में लगातार सुनते आ रहे होंगे। इजराइल की तरफ से कोई भी ऐसा सीज फायर या युद्ध को, संघर्ष को रोकने की कोशिश नाकाम साबित हो रही है। अंतर्राष्ट्रीय पहल भी काफ़ी सार्थक नहीं हो पाया है। लोग भूख से बिलख रहे हैं, बच्चे, बूढ़े निरंतर उस बमबारी में मारे जा रहे हैं। आखिर ये हुआ क्यों, कैसे हुआ, इन तमाम चीज़ों की जानकारी एक विद्यार्थी के रूप में हम सबको समझना जरूरी है। और वो राजनीति विज्ञान के विभिन्न कोर्सेज में, जो बीए और एमए के कोर्सेज हैं, MPG 001 इंडिया इन द वर्ल्ड, या बीए के कोर्सेज में 142, बीजेपी 142, 144, लार्जली आप इसका रिफ्लेक्शन देखेंगे कि दुनिया में जो घटनाएं हो रही हैं उसका ऐतिहासिक पृष्ठभूमि के साथ उसका चित्रण बहुत जरूरी है। तो हमास जिसका नाम आप सुनते हैं, ये क्या है? फिलिस्तीन और इजराइल के युद्ध की बात तो सभी सुनते आ रहे हैं, लेकिन इस बार ये हमास और इजराइल के युद्ध की बात, संघर्ष की बात की जा रही है। तो कैसे ये अलग है, इसके बारे में भी जानना जरूरी है। घटना की शुरुआत हम जानते ही हैं कि 7 अक्टूबर को हुई कि अचानक हमास के द्वारा आक्रमण किया गया और आक्रमण में बहुत लोग हताहत हुए। जो सुबह रात में सो रहे थे, तमाम बुजुर्ग, महिलाएं, बच्चे इस घटना से हताहत हुए। ये उसी तरह की घटना थी, एक आतंकी आक्रमण था जिस तरह का 9/11 की घटना थी। और 9/11 के बाद जिस प्रतिकार के साथ अमेरिका ने दुनिया को बताया कि भाई वी विल स्मोक आउट whoever are responsible for this terror attack. In the same tone and texture, Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu did the same thing, and he categorically said it that we are not going to leave out whoever have done it. And that is how from the day, next day, Israeli forces are trying to navigate and curb each and every members of the Hamas from the Gaza Patti and West Bank. Though it is a very difficult task, it is not possible to clean them or control them, because there are many tunnels have been in the last few years have been built where Hamas are operating from there, and it is a mixed like water and milk. So large members of the Hamas who have mixed up with the citizenry of the larger populace, and that is a very difficult to segregate them and kill them. So that is a very difficult task. But let's try to identify the causes of this conflict. ये फिलिस्तीन और इजराइल का द्वंद्व बहुत पुराना है। अगर इतिहास में इसे जगह खोजने की कोशिश करें तो ये दुनिया का सबसे, हमको लगता है कि पुराना कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है जो अभी भी अनरिजॉल्व है। इसका ट्रेसेस आपको 19th सेंचुरी में मिलेगा, जब एक यहूदी राष्ट्र के स्थापना के लिए जगह खोजा जा रहा था कि यहूदी देश कहाँ पर बनेगा। और वो द्वंद्व 19वीं शताब्दी में और 20वीं शताब्दी की शुरुआत में बड़ी मजबूती के साथ लगा रहा। और यूरोप के कुछ जगहों पर तलाशने की कोशिश की गई, लेकिन अंत में 1947 में यूएन जनरल असेंबली के द्वारा यह तय हुआ कि जो फिलिस्तीन का एरिया है और जो बर्थ प्लेस माना जाता है जेरूसलम, वो यहूदियों का बर्थ प्लेस है, वो ओरिजिन है, वो कई शताब्दियों से माना जाता है कि वो उनका घर है, वहीं पर उनको स्थापित किया जाएगा। द्वितीय विश्व युद्ध में भी यहूदियों को लेकर जो समस्याएं पूरी दुनिया के सामने हिटलर के साथ वो इतिहास की किताबों में दर्ज है कि किस तरीके से उनकी दर्दनाक गैस चैम्बर में यहूदियों के साथ बर्ताव किया गया, हजारों लाखों लोग मारे गए थे। तो एक द्वंद्व, एक ऐसी परिस्थिति, एक ऐसा जगह जरूरी था जहाँ पर यहूदियों को बसाया जाए और उन्हें स्थापित किया जाए। ब्रिटेन इसके पक्ष में था और बाकी यूरोपीय देश भी इसके साथ थे। तो 1947 में फाइनली मई 1948 में इजराइल का एक अलग देश के एक राज्य के रूप में जन्म होता है और फिर से वहाँ पर इजराइल और फिलिस्तीन के बीच में जो टू नेशन थियरी की बात, कि एक ही जगह पर नेशन स्टेट की बात तो हम जानते हैं, राष्ट्र राज्य की बात तो हम जानते हैं कि एक देश होता है और उस देश को संयमित करने के लिए, संचालित करने के लिए राज्य होता है और जिसे राष्ट्र राज्य के रूप में हम जानते हैं। एंड दे हैव अ गवर्नमेंट, दे हैव अ पर्टिकुलर टेरिटरी वेयर द sovereignty of a particular state is being operational. But here there are two nations. There is one Israel, there is another Philistine, and the territory are more or like the same. So during the through the UN declaration and before the UN declaration, Balfour declarations, all it demarcated almost 56% of the land to the Israel and 46% land to the Philistine. But the moment it was created, Palestine did not merely Palestine, but most of the Arab countries did not recognize the UN declarations of the two-nation theory, and they started intervening. Most of the countries surrounding the areas are Muslim countries, whether it is Jordan, Lebanon, Iran, Turkey. There are many countries which are surrounded, so they have their own stake, and that is how they started playing the role. And the conflict always remained alive, either intervention of the one or two, and there were many wars. उसके बाद से आप देखेंगे कि कई दर्दनाकपूर्ण युद्ध हुए और वो युद्ध आज भी चल रहा है। लेकिन उसमें दो महत्वपूर्ण घटनाओं की चर्चा जरूरी है, क्योंकि 1967 का वार और 1973 का वार were a very defining moment for the territory, and this is how Israel gradually picked up the strength, and it was being supported by the European countries along with America, and that is how it managed to occupy the larger territory which were demarcated to the Philistine. And that is how it went on and on, and conflict, despite being the support of most of the Arab countries, it single-handedly maintained the supremacy and defeated in the sequence of war which took place either in 1967 or 1973 or 87. Whenever conflict emerged, Israel was victorious. The reason were many, but the largely reason was it was being supported by America and Western power. तो इस तरीके से वहाँ पर टू नेशन की थियरी कभी भी अस्थायी रूप से दिखाई नहीं दी। अब हम यहाँ पर ये जानने की कोशिश करें कि हमास का जन्म कैसे हुआ। हमास एक यूरोपीय देशों की नज़र में एक टेररिस्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है। इजराइल भी उसे टेररिस्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन मानता है, और जिस तरीके का 7 अक्टूबर को अटैक हुआ, उसे कई अन्य देश भी उसे आतंकी संगठन के रूप में देखने की शुरुआत करने लगे। लेकिन उसके कई अन्य स्वरूप भी हैं। The members of the Hamas, which originated in 1987, later on it started its radical instinct in the areas where the Philistines were located, largely in the West Bank, and earlier outfit of Philistine was Fatah. Fatah was an organization which had a mandate, but gradually it started declining, and Hamas started climbing up. और 2006 का जो इलेक्शन फिलिस्तीन के भीतर हुआ, उसमें हमास को मेजॉरिटी मिली और फतह को बाहर कर दिया गया। दोनों के बीच में भी द्वंद्व हुए, दोनों के बीच में भी हमास और फतह के बीच में द्वंद्व हुए, लेकिन फतह की संख्या निरंतर कमजोर होती गई, समर्थन भी उसे कम मिलने लगे बाहरी शक्तियों के द्वारा, और हमास एक मजबूत ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के रूप में उभर कर सामने आया। तो उसका बाहरी स्वरूप भी है, एक पॉलिटिकल आउटफिट भी है, एक सोशल सेक्टर पे भी वो काम करता है, लोगों के बीच में महिलाओं और बच्चों के एजुकेशन से संबंधित स्वास्थ्य की सेवाओं से लेकर उन तमाम तरह की चीज़ों जो एक स्टेट काम करता है वो उसे करने की कोशिश करता है। तो कहने का अर्थ कि हमास एक पॉलिटिकल मैंडेट के साथ दुनिया को एक सूचना भी देना चाहता है कि वी आर द रियल फिलिस्तीन एंड वी आर द रिप्रेजेंटेटिव ऑफ द फिलिस्तीन एंड वी आर फाइटिंग फॉर द कॉज ऑफ फिलिस्तीन। अब उसकी क्या समझ है, व्हाट डज इट वांट? वो टू नेशन थियरी को पूरी तरह से नामंजूर करता है। इट डज नॉट बिलीव इन द टू नेशन थियरी। इट वांट्स कंप्लीट dismantlement of Israel. It does not allow Israel to be there in the same areas, whether it is Jerusalem, whether it is the West Bank, or whether it is the Gaza Patti and all. So it wants to wipe out the Israel from there, which is not possible at all. तो वो उसका पहला ध्येय है। दूसरी तरफ इजराइल की क्या सोच है? इजराइल टू नेशन थियरी को मानने के लिए तैयार है, लेकिन एक शर्त के साथ। वो कहता है कि फिलिस्तीन को अपने आप को डिसआर्म करना होगा, यानी हथियारों से अपने आप को उतारना होगा, ख़त्म करना होगा और डिक्लेयर करना होगा कि हम किसी तरह का युद्ध या किसी तरह की लड़ाई के लिए हम विषक्त नहीं हैं, हमें यहीं पर शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से सहयोग के साथ कोएग्जिस्टेंस की नीति का पहल करना होगा, एंड विच इज़ वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू अडॉप्ट। तो ये कारण है, ये विवाद है। अब विवाद को कॉन्फ्लिक्ट करने का एक और कारण है। हम अरब वर्ल्ड के राजनीतिक विवाद को देखने की कोशिश करें तो ये बात समझ में आती है कि शिया सुन्नी का एक संघर्ष है, और हमास जो है वो सुन्नी बहुल व्यवस्था को, इस्लामिक व्यवस्था को और लागू करना चाहता है, स्थापित करना चाहता है। अब यहाँ पर लार्जर जो कंट्रीज हैं जो हमास को फंड देते आ रहे हैं या आज भी इस संघर्ष में हथियार और फंड देने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, उसमें ईरान भी एक महत्वपूर्ण देश है। ईरान सुन्नी नहीं है, ईरान शिया है। सऊदी अरबिया लिमिटेड एक्सटेंट तक, चूंकि इस्लामिक जगत की बात है, वो अमेरिका प्रेरित देश रहा है पूरे गल्फ में, और वो अमेरिका के पद चिन्हों पर चलने की कोशिश करता है। लेकिन चूंकि इस युद्ध में सारे इस्लामिक देशों ने इजराइल के विरुद्ध युद्ध की घोषणा की है, तो वो उसकी भी सोच इजराइल विरोधी है। लेकिन बाकी जो अरब के देश हैं वो सुन्नी देश हैं, और वो इस युद्ध को में समग्र रूप में जो अगर देखा जाए तो भले ही हमास के साथ है, और लेकिन हमास के साथ होने के साथ साथ ईरान के द्वारा जो दिए गए सपोर्ट या ईरान के बूते पर एक व्यवस्था बनाने की जो कोशिश होगी उसके विरोध में है। तो उनके भीतर के आंतरिक द्वंद्व भी हैं। ऐसा नहीं कि सभी एक सुर में एक तरीके से इस युद्ध में शामिल हैं। उनकी अपनी अपनी सोच है, उनकी अपनी अपनी रणनीति है, जिसके कारण से उनका एजेंडा भी अलग है। अब जिस तरीके के हथियारों का पाया गया इस युद्ध में, जो यूज़ किया गया 7 अक्टूबर 2023 को हमास के द्वारा, उसमें बहुत सारे चाइनीज़ हथियार मिले। तो इस बात की भी गुंजाइश है कि चाइना इस संघर्ष में घोषित रूप से हमास के साथ नहीं है, लेकिन जिस तरह से उसने अपनी नीतियों की घोषणा की है, उससे इस बात का अंदाजा लगता है कि यूक्रेन और रसा युद्ध के समीकरण को देखते हुए और पश्चिमी दुनिया चूंकि पूरे इजराइल के साथ खड़ी है, तो अब विशेषकर अमेरिका, तो उसकी प्रतिक्रिया में चीन और रूस ने इजराइल को युद्ध विराम की चेतावनी भी दी है और हमास को एक तरह से सपोर्ट किया है। अब इस तरह से दुनिया बढ़ती हुई दिखाई दे रही है कि चाइना, रूस, उत्तरी कोरिया, जो एक्सेस है, जो यूक्रेन में आपको दिखाई देगा, जो एक्सेस जिस तरह से दुनिया डिवाइडेड है, उसी तरीके का नजरिया इस संघर्ष में भी देखने को मिलता है। बाकी जितने भी यूरोप के देश हैं, अमेरिका सहित तमाम, वो इजराइल के साथ बहुत ही मजबूती के साथ खड़े हैं और अमेरिकी राष्ट्रपति से लेकर ब्रिटेन के प्रधानमंत्री, जर्मनी के चांसलर और तमाम बड़े नेता इजराइल की यात्रा भी कर चुके हैं और हर तरह के आर्थिक से लेकर सैनिक मदद देने का आश्वासन भी उन्होंने दिया है। तो इस तरीके से दुनिया यहाँ पर भी एक तरह से बढ़ती हुई दिखाई दे रही है। अब भारत का नजरिया क्या है? भारत शुरू से ही युद्ध विराम के पक्ष में रहा है। भारत ने जो 7 अक्टूबर की घटना हुई उसकी बड़ी तीखी भर्त्सना की। इट वॉज कंप्लीट barbaric attack. It was a terror attack on a country which is fighting against the terrorism with the tooth and nail. And India is like one of the countries which is also on the target of the terrorist outfits. So it is always standing with Israel. So that was a very categorical and very quick statement expressed with the sentiment by the Honorable Prime Minister of India. And it was endorsed by the Foreign Minister. Many visits of the dignitaries took place, and they supported at any point of time, if needs arises, India is always standing with Israel. तो ये एक तरह से हम डिहाइफिनेटेड पॉलिसी की हम बात करते हैं, जिसमें हम टू नेशन थियरी को स्थापित करने की गुजारिश भी करते हैं कि फिलिस्तीन और इजराइल इन दोनों बातों को माने। लेकिन जो अभी क्राइसिस हुई है उस पर हम देखेंगे कि देयर इज ए चेंज ऑफ एटीट्यूड एंड चेंज ऑफ approach in the Indian foreign policy. We have been always fighting for the cause of peace. We have been trying to establish the two-nation theory. But this time, when there was a terrorist attack, we felt the kind of sentiments which Israel is facing, the kind of problems which Israel is facing, which matches with the agony and troubles of India. तो उसे खत्म करने का किसी भी तरीके से भारत ने अपनी मंशा जाहिर की है। और हम जानते हैं कि इतिहास के पन्नों में भारतीय पृष्ठभूमि को इस संघर्ष के नज़रिए से देखें तो ये नज़र आता है कि दूसरी जब इजराइल की स्थापना होती है, उस यूएन डिक्लेरेशन में गांधी जी जब तक जिंदा थे, गांधी जी ने इजराइल को एक अलग नेशन स्टेट के रूप में उसका विरोध किया था और नहीं चाहते थे कि एक संघर्ष की स्थिति उत्पन्न हो। लेकिन उसके बाद हम फिलिस्तीन जनरेटेड अलग राष्ट्र बनने के बाद भी हमने इजराइल को मान्यता नहीं दी और पीएलओ जो फिलिस्तीन लिबरेशन आर्मी है उसको हमने डिप्लोमेटिक से नवाजा, डिप्लोमेटिक संबंधों से नवाजा। भारत शायद वो पहला नॉन अरब कंट्रीज होगा जिसने पीएलओ को डिप्लोमेटिक मोहलत दी और संबंध को स्थापित किया। ये स्थिति हमें लगता है कि 90 के दशक तक बनी रही। 90 के दशक में 1992 में पहली बार हम इजराइल के साथ अपने डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशन को एस्टैब्लिश करने की कोशिश करते हैं और करते हैं। उसके बाद फिर 1999 में इजराइल became a very important partner of India, and it became the second most important countries in terms of supplying the arms to India after Russia. तो टोटल जो इजराइल आर्म्स और एमुनिशंस पूरी दुनिया को भेजता है उसका 45% हिस्सा केवल भारत को वो देता है. तो इस तरीके से सैनिक तंत्र के में, एग्रीकल्चर में, पढ़ाई लिखाई में, स्वास्थ्य में, अन्य कई महकमों में इजराइल भारत का बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण पड़ोसी देश के रूप में उभर कर सामने आया और धीरे धीरे स्ट्रैटेजिक पार्टनरशिप की भी स्थापना शुरू हुई. हम जानते हैं कि कई वर्षों बाद, कई दशकों बाद भारत के प्रधानमंत्री 2017 में इजराइल की यात्रा पर गए और उस संबंध को उन्होंने और पुख्ता बनाया. लेकिन इन तमाम तथ्यों के बावजूद जो परिस्थिति इजराइल और फिलिस्तीन के बीच में, जो हम सामान्यतः हमास के रूप में आज पढ़ते हैं अखबारों में कि ये संघर्ष इजराइल और फिलिस्तीन के ये बीच में नहीं, इजराइल और हमास के बीच में है, वो किस ओर दुनिया को ले जा रहा है. क्योंकि एक समय में अरब कंट्रीज तेल के उत्पादक का एक भंडार हुआ करता था और वहाँ पर किसी भी तरह की परेशानी से दुनिया में कई समस्याएं पैदा हो जाती थी एनर्जी को लेकर. वो आज भी हो रही हैं, लेकिन वो उस रूप में नहीं जो 70s और 80s में हुआ करती थी. क्योंकि आज पेट्रोलियम और गैस प्रचुर मात्रा अन्य देशों में भी पाया जा रहा है. अमेरिका उसका बहुत बड़ा केंद्र बन चुका है, रसा बहुत बड़ा केंद्र बन चुका है. कई अन्य देश ग्रीन एनर्जी की तरफ मूव कर रहे हैं, जिसमें भारत भी है, सोलर एनर्जी. तो एनर्जी क्राइसिस को लेकर वो तलखी जो 70s और 80s के दशक में थी वो कमज़ोर हुई और उस कमजोरी के कारण से ही ये भी देखा गया कि अमेरिकी नीति भी जो 20वीं शताब्दी के शुरुआत में थी या 20वीं शताब्दी के अंत में या 21वीं शताब्दी के शुरुआत में जो रही, वो बदलती हुई दिखाई देने लगी. अमेरिका के लिए मिडिल ईस्ट उतना इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं रहा जितना कि कोल्ड वॉर के दौरान था और अमेरिका की निगाहें दुनिया के अन्य हिस्सों में, विशेषकर ईस्ट एशिया में, साउथ ईस्ट एशिया में ज़्यादा महत्वपूर्ण बनने लगी. क्योंकि वहाँ पर ताइवान और चीन का संघर्ष की रूपरेखा दिखाई देने लगी. तो कहने का अर्थ कि आज अगर मिडिल ईस्ट इजराइल और हमास के द्वंद्व के कारण से पीड़ित है, तो लार्जर कॉन्टेक्स्ट में दुनिया को नुकसान तो हो ही रहा है, लेकिन विशेषकर उन तकरीबन कई लाख लोग जो आज शरणार्थी के रूप में बेघर हो चुके हैं, वो चाहे बच्चे, बूढ़े, महिलाएं, जो ह्यूमैनिटेरियन क्राइसिस की उस अत्यंत दयनीय स्थिति में है, जहाँ पर स्वास्थ्य की बातें तो छोड़, खाने पीने की सामग्री नहीं पहुँच पा रही है, बमबारी और मिसाइल अटैक से लोग मारे जा रहे हैं. इसे निजात देने के लिए ज़रूरत है, जो भारत की सोच है कि पहले तो युद्ध विराम हो, सीज फायर हो और बाद में फिर हमास जैसे संगठन पर तालाबंदी हो, लगाम लगाया जाए और एक ऐसी व्यवस्था बने जो टू नेशन थियरी को यूएन डिक्लेरेशन के द्वारा स्थापित किया गया, उसे पुनः मजबूती के साथ दुनिया के सभी देश मिलकर स्थापित करें. यही शांति की पहल हो सकती है. उसके अलावा उस क्षेत्र में शांति बहाल करना बड़ा मुश्किल होगा. धन्यवाद.
know that the world's population has reached 8 billion on 15th November 2022 and we are still counting. I don't know where do we go from here. The predictions are scary. Any idea how many people can Mother Earth sustain? India's growing population is a serious concern and we are soon going to become the world's most populous country. Wow, number one. Population is, after all, a human issue. The UN proposed Sustainable Development Goals cannot be achieved unless and until we consider the population dynamics. So, here we are. Indira Gandhi National Open University offers appreciation course on population and sustainable development. The course explores the linkages between population and sustainable development. In this course, there are diverse issues related to population, environmental safety, livelihoods, human health, migration, urbanization and much more. The course duration is 3 months, but of course you can complete it within a year. The eligibility of the course is graduation from a recognized university. So, if you are a development professional, working in a government sector, researcher or keen to know more about the population and sustainable development, the course is must for you. Hurry up and join this course so that we are able to convert population into demographic dividend and not convert it into demographic disaster. For more information,
Hello. Constitutionally, in the social context, on our own, but many of us, we never do that without much freedom. It's not happening in very stringent conditions. Nobody's forcing us to accept anything. But indirectly and through multiple options, many social institutions influences our thought process. Without knowing, individuals succumb to those pressure. Without knowing those agenda, we cease to subscribe the other's ideology. Without knowing ourselves, we used to behave as per the instruction received indirectly through various sources. How to control that? How to control our thought process? How to take a decision on our own thinking process? That's called empowerment. And in this program, we are going to discuss about digital empowerment. I'm Arul Selvan, faculty with the School of Journalism and New Media Studies. In the present scenario of technological dominated platform, every majority of us are connected. Connected the sense not personally with our neighborhood or with the immediate community. Through technologically we are connected. And we are bombarded with so much of information. We are connected with so many devices. Devices are connected. Through devices, we are connected with the thousands of people. So much of information is coming. This is one aspect of the current scenario in which we are living. And from 2020 onwards, government started focusing more specifically on reformation in educational sector. And government gave a guideline called National Education Policy 2020. One of the recommendations is technology-based education, digital empowerment, digital inclusion. All these many aspects are connected with the technology. Utilization of technology for individuals. This is one recent development in which government started focusing on that. In a larger goal, in the global context, Sustainable Development Goal 2030, that's a target in which they want to achieve that. One of the target is empowerment through ICT. If you look at the global or national context, every government, every institutions trying to popularize technology, at the same time trying to create awareness about technology among the individuals, how to handle those technology. So that is called digital empowerment. In this presentation, we are going to understand what is actually empowerment, what are the nuances of digital empowerment, and how empowerment can be achieved through adequate digital inclusion. In the whole process, what role media literacy can play. These are the 4 dimensions of these presentations. In the simplest definition, empowerment is adding more power to individuals. Empowerment is a process by which the individuals gain mastery over the personal affairs, influence over the political problems that affect them, ability to articulate their own stories, capacity for self-action and transformation of self-definition, capacity to access information and resources, confidence and autonomy to make meaningful and free choices and to translate their choices into desired actions and outcomes, capacity to increase agency for shaping their lives and community in which they live, and so on. In a simplistic term, we can describe that empowerment is the process in which the individual gains more power, through which they control their thought process. They know what needs to be accepted, what needs to be rejected, what are the information needs to be understood very critically, and how to communicate to larger population, and what needs to be communicated, and communication needs to be contextualized with the context of welfare of the nearest community. So the empowerment is, we are enhancing our ability. We are enhancing ability in the sense not on other subject domains. Very simple, our own critical thinking, our skills and competency for the critical thinking, and through the process we are able to control the connectedness. That's what I've introduced in the beginning. We are highly connected through technology with many more people and information. In this scenario, our living conditions are closely associated with the higher utilization of technological platform. How to manage those platforms, how to manage through the platform with others, and what are the information coming and going needs to be controlled. This ability to have a better skills and competencies called empowerment. In the context of technology, we can call it as a digital empowerment. The digital empowerment has a multiple connotations, and the whole empowerment can be achieved. Why national level government is talking it through the major policy reformation in terms of the educational context, or global level in the Sustainable Development Goal, why they are talking about empowerment through ICT. You need to understand that the environment in which we are living has a lot of commercial benefits, lot of ideological benefits, lot of other sociological benefits. Every major powerful institutions in the country or global context. They are maximizing the utilization of technology for their own benefits. If it's a capitalist, they use it for commercial benefits. If it's a political system, they use it for their own ideological benefits, opinion making. And other social institutions, they'll try to use a public opinion for sake of change, positive or negative, whatever level they are working on that. So for every thought process, every support, they need mass support. How do we generate the mass support? Through media. Now with the technology, social media, other platform in which the participation is much, much better. The hidden agenda and vested interest, they are imbibed in the whole communication content. The news or entertainment or infotainment, whatever the content we are getting, are embedded with a lot of loaded messages, loaded agenda. How do we differentiate that? So every government is very conscious about that. Every major change agents are conscious about that. And participation is very crucial for democratic process. Until otherwise the individuals participate, the speed in which the transformation happens may not be achieved as stated in the national level or global level. So every major institution wants the individual empowerment, particularly with the technological platform. They want to achieve the digital empowerment. Digital empowerment doesn't mean about knowing about computer, knowing about a keyboard, knowing about the mobile app and all, but beyond that, how to use those platforms for betterment of individuals. In the digital empowerment process, one of the main criteria is we have to enhance the access to right information and reliable resources. So as an individual, the digital empowerment involves the using digital technologies and internet access to expand our understanding to locate the required information and locate the reliable resources. This is one of the criteria to be achieved as part of the digital empowerment process. The second one is having a critical thinking. Critical thinking is simplistic term. You might have heard about the term read between the lines. Materials are printed, contents are produced or manufactured, created and shared in the individual level or group level in the public platform. Whatever information comes, we should not accept as the face value. We have to think who is behind this message and what purpose this message is being delivered to me and under what context. If you ask the basic questions, you can understand the purpose of that message. And if you understand the purpose of message, then you can take appropriate decision for yourself. The political parties bombarding the advertisements in a given context, we can understand easily why they are doing like that. And if the commercial entity is going for multiple levels of advertisements, they are very vigorously promoting certain product, certain brand. If it is needed, you can go for that. Artificial demand we can't accept as it is, because this is the individual need to take up buy any product at all. So access to right information, the first step. Once you got the information needs to be processed in a well balanced manner. Critical thinking. That's the second criteria to become a digitally empowered person. And the third important criteria as a part of the digital empowerment is promoting digital inclusion. Digital empowerment is closely linked with the digital inequalities. We will understand the inequalities in a better manner in the coming slides. Inequalities and digital empowerment is highly linked. And its aims, the individuals, they have an opportunity to get the benefit from the digital technology. Earlier, couple of decades back, it is being termed as a digital divide. Divide the sense those having access to technology and the other side is don't have access to technology. Divide, completely binary position. Some group is having, others are not having. But now the scenario got changed, and you must be familiar with the mobile penetration, because in nook and corner the mobile connectivity is available. Different handsets, different features. Some of them may be very sophisticated, some of them may be just ability to receive the call and attend the call or call back somebody. So variety of mobiles reach, as per the latest data, is close to 93% of Indian populations having mobile connectivity. In that, the urban centers having more daily density, rural having a less daily density. And there are gaps between gender, location, education, income. If you look at the various social demographic profile, you will find the variations. Many of them may not have a proficiency in English, so they are slowly, some extent, they are excluded from the software technological benefits, because a large chunk of the benefits are linked with the language. And income, if economic purchase power is low, then we can't afford sophisticated technology, multiple resources, high-powered gadgets, not possible. Even after having a computer, or laptop, or tab, or mobile, many of us having a different variation in terms of taking a benefit from those technological platforms, in terms of our ability, in terms of language capacity, in terms of our need, in terms of our professional background. It varies from person to person. And maybe somebody might be technological savvy, and many of us may not be having that kind of proficiency in handling the technology. This variation creates inequality. And there's a huge inequality in our Indian context, because digital inequality is not existing in the cyberspace or online. Inequality in a social context, inequality existing in the offline, in the normal world, that gets reflected in the online platform. There is no separate inequality in the online. It's a replica of social inequality in the online space. Social inequality, can understand that there is levels of hierarchy in terms of social hierarchy, economic hierarchy, hierarchy in terms of income, and hierarchy in terms of education, professional level, location, gender, and caste. There are multiple variables involved in positioning somebody in different cadre. Same is being reflected in an online platform. So until otherwise we neutralize the inequality, digital empowerment cannot be achieved easily. So this is the third criteria to become a digitally empowered individual. The fourth one is having access, having a critical thinking about accessing information and reducing inequality. The fourth level is enabling individual to participate. Participation. It's not like a newspaper, every day morning you're receiving a reading. Because somebody is writing a story, you are receiving the process of news consumption is there. Here, with the technology, social media and other platform, with your mobile, easily you can communicate, easily you can report, you can raise a complaint, you can like something, you can share something. How much participation can we have the capacity to participate? A couple of decades back it was not possible. Now the platform provides a lot of participation opportunities. But how much effort we are individuals taking for that opportunity to use for civic engagement and political participation? It's not about being a part of the political party. And we are living in a community, we are living in a society. There are a lot of issues attached with it. How much care we are taking about the issues surrounding us. And simple and changing a profile, you are showing some solidarity with the issue. Sharing some information, or posting some information. Small effort from individuals. Remember that more effort like that from individuals is if you collectively put together, that force is very strong. Until otherwise individuals participates, the society may not go that faster. So digital empowerment, ultimate goal is having information, critical thinking and reducing inequality. The fourth level is participation in a civic and a political level. So these four are the crucial components, criteria of digital empowerment. Now we have understood the four criteria for empowerment. What are the challenges in achieving empowerment? There are only one challenge. This is about digital inequalities. And the digital inequality is having its own dimensions. I told you that there is no separate inequality existing in the online platform, but rather the digital inequality is a replica of online inequalities. It's a replica of online inequality is a replica of social offline inequality. Whatever inequality existing in our offline world gets reflected in an online platform. And there are many issues with inequality. The primary factor in which the inequality does exist is economic disparities in terms of accessing technology and its benefits. And it's rooted in economic, the basic primary inequality, the reason for inequality is economic disparities. And the financial constraints, and that leads to lack of access to digital devices and high-speed internet. And if you travel beyond the urban settings, many times we might face the connectivity issues, but more number of people are living outside the urban context, but the technological speed, internet speed is limited there. So that is one of the concerns, the location disadvantage. And economic inequalities also affect digital access and opportunity that in some individuals wanted to use that. So this is a primary constraint of reaching the desired digital empowerment process. One of the criteria of inequality, one of the constraints of inequality. And the second aspect is geographic disparity, economic disparities and geographic disparities. Location plays a significant role in digital inequalities. Rural areas and undeserved communities may have limited access to reliable internet infrastructure. And it's become a challenge for those residents living in those locations to take advantage of digital resources. And this locational disparity, geographical disparity, urban, rural, urban, semi-urban and rural, if you compare that, easily you can understand how much the resources are available in each location. A simple example I'll tell you that in Indian context, the Delhi density is number of mobile connectivity available for an individual. In urban context, it's 165%. 165%, this is 2020 data, might be now the number might have slightly changed because of more aggressive penetration in the rural areas. One person's having more than one connection, that's what means 165%. Whereas in the rural areas, if you go, it's around 57-60%. So every second person having one connection. Simplest term example for geographic disparities. In urban, one individual having more than one connections. In a rural, two individuals sharing one connections. You can understand easily how much technological resources are being utilized by urban and rural. You will find the differences. Another third important barrier for digital empowerment is socio-cultural barriers. The cultural and social factors can contribute to digital inequalities. Some individuals, older generations, and they may not have adequate digital skills and competencies, literacy to navigate with the digital world effectively. And it creates a divide between different age group and community. Different groups, different communities. There are many communities lives in the peripheral areas, marginalized communities, disadvantaged communities, age groups, and people living with disabilities. There are many more communities like this. All are part of this society that exhibit different levels of barriers. That as a society we have to include every person in the whole process. So economic disparity, geographical disparity. The third is social cultural barriers. These are the barriers of achieving the digital empowerment. And the fourth criteria in which we can discuss about content language barriers. In the global context, language and content can be a barrier to digital access. When 1996-98 internet was introduced, and for the first 10 years, 1 decade, English was a very dominant language in the online platform. Once upon a time, it was considered that close to 70% of the content available online belongs to English. But gradually got changed in the late last decade, around 2015 to 2020. It was estimated around 50 to 55% of the content available in English. Remember that in the early 2000 it was 70%. By 2015 it's 50%, and gradually English getting reduced, the dominance getting reduced. Other languages started playing a major role. Other languages means particularly the languages from the developed countries having much more presence. For example, in Indian context, if you measure that how much literature is available or content, language content available online, we are presenting in a very meager level of representation in online language wise. So this is a challenge one. Already English is not a very popular language in India. Close to around less than single digit numbers of people, portion of people are speaking English, affluent in English, understanding English. 90% plus people have to use their own native language, mother tongue, their own Indian languages to understand, to communicate, to interpret whatever the information they want to associate with the technology. So until otherwise the language-based content is available, the penetration, technology can penetrate, but utilization goes down. Here, another factor, plays a crucial role in inequalities. And how empowerment we discussed, individual needs to be empowered technologically, ability to participate, access, critical thinking, participation, and other aspects of digital empowerment. And we understood what are the barriers, economic, geographical, social, cultural, and language barriers. How this can be achieved, how the empowerment can be achieved by minimizing digital inequality. There are 3 dimensions in the whole process. Ultimate goal is empowerment. Why do we need to talk about empowerment? Because there is an existing inequality in the society. That gets reflected in the online world, digital inequality. So otherwise we address the digital inequality, empowerment cannot be achieved. What is the solution for the inequality? Solution is media literacy. Media literacy is a solution for the problem of digital inequality. If you address the inequality problem through media literacy, you can achieve the empowerment. So this is a triangle. Then one side is empowerment, other side is inequality, and the solution is media literacy. Basically, media literacy is talking about the literacy, you can understand that, reading, writing, and ability to understand. Same is the extension of literacy is media literacy, where the individual having a capacity to control the medium, various media, various information outlets, and participation, understanding everything. So media literacy needs to be promoted in every sphere, particularly educational intervention strongly recommended. Formal, informal, and non-formal way of facilitating in media literacy is very crucial. And in the developed countries, now we are talking about internet and online social media platform and all. But the media always very powerful, always every part of the technological platform, it played a crucial role. And before television, newspaper, magazine, color television, the color magazines, they played a very crucial role. Then television came, then internet came. So whenever there is a major change in the media system, the developed countries' school curriculum adapted their educational settings to incorporate those changes. Magazine, they introduced a separate curriculum, how to read the magazines, how to understand color television, then later immediately internet. So the school can, because younger generation, the population dividend, you can understand in India, 2/3 belongs to youngsters. If we can train those people through proper formal or informal or non-formal educational settings about the media literacy, so they can use the technology for the empowerment process. If we promote media literacy, then inequality goes down, and then we can reach the empowerment. Empowerment has a lot of benefits. An ultimate goal of civic and political participation. Everybody takes care about their family and immediate surrounding communities. If we do it that manner, then this is how the many developed countries achieve their progress in the multiple infrastructure level. Living standards goes up, and beyond the government, beyond the major stakeholders, every individual should have their realizing their responsibilities. If they realize the responsibility and if they're able to contribute something through technology, that's what digital empowerment is aiming for that. Thanks for watching.
In the last program, we talked about behavioral psychology